This is the strangest thing about people. The Muppets who are currently wearing plastic bags and air filters and World War II gas masks over their heads and being so like this, when this is all over, you might get a comedian stand up on stage and make a joke about, remember we were all like, we all looked like, you know, vacuum cleaners, and he will laugh too. He will not laugh at the irony of himself though, because that was somebody else, you know. Like, it's when when they had the Nuremberg trials, and that was the Third Reich was very much a secular religion. They said to them, why did you do these horrible things? I was just following orders. They were not lying. They were telling us the truth. They were just following. They were not lying. They were just following orders. That's why they could do the most appalling things and then go home to their families. The same thing with these ones today. And like the ones who rip down statues, the absurdity of that, I was ever to point out the absurdity, they won't remember it because they're prompted by what the media or authority tells them the next thing is to do. And they just do it impulsively because there's a fear that they won't survive. Like at the Black Lives Matter guys, right, to change the subject, but it's also a cult, right? The wealthy whites in that, the middle-class whites who are involved in that, subconsciously at the deepest level are doing it so they hope black people will love them and not harm them. So ultimately, there's a depth of hatred to black people there. You understand? Because they see black people as a threat. So, you know, Tarquin from the Cambridge Socialist Workers' Party, the upper middle class BLM activist, and he's going, of course, you know, so support Black Lives Matter. What he's really saying is, the truest thing in him is that he thinks if he says that, they won't come and harm him. Therefore, at his primal lower poles of cognitive functioning, he sees people of color as a personal danger to him. And then by pointing to working class people and going, they're all Brexit racists, they're all the racists, he's hoping that anger among colored people of color, is channeled then towards the white working class. This is what the functional level of that is. It's a deep-rooted psychological lower pole of consciousness functioning that he does not like black people, he does not like people of color, but he pretends he's involved in BLM with his posh upper-class accent for the simple reason that they will leave him alone. And that's what drives them. And what we're seeing with and we're seeing that same thing, that primal fear, that same primal fear among the COVID anti-types, that if I do this, it won't kill me, but it will kill the guy that doesn't wear the mask. Kill him instead. Kill him. And what they're really saying is, I hope the politicians kill the people who don't wear masks. I hope they round them up and kill them all. And that's the same, because then I'll be left alone. A primal fear. There's nothing more despicable, evil, and wretched than a frightened little man. Nothing more wretched. He will do the most inhuman things to another human being in order to protect his own hide. And that's what we're seeing with all these people. Like, I totally understand. Everyone agrees that Black Lives Matter. Everyone agrees there's a coronavirus. Everyone believes that you should have kindness and decency to people of all races, that there has been terrible, horrific injustices to people of color through history. We totally get that. We're totally on side with that. But that's not the same thing as standing up there and saying, I'm on their side for this, you know, because you'll find that their ancestors were the ones. You'll find like the posh guy, the posh upper class middle guy in BLM, his ancestors were the ones who were the slave traders in Bristol or somewhere like that. You will find that. And this is almost like a penance, an absolve thing, right? But at the same time too, he still wants them to be violent, but to the working class whites, the working class native community. That's how these people think. And it's the same thing with the coronavirus. There's a deep-rooted penance, a thing of, you know, an absolving of the soul inside them that they have to address. And they find a mechanism that gives them meaning in their lives. A pandemic. I'm now a member of something, a crusade, a church. I have meaning in my empty life. It's no longer just about dancing at the stars. It's no longer about following football results. I've something more. For the first time in my empty cheesehead life, I have something that I can actually pin my identity upon. That is a good thing, a great thing for humanity. A crusade against a devil, a virus, an individual thing that I can't see, but I'm on the right side of justiceness. a justice, and no one is going to take this from me. And you have to start oppressing the people who don't. And that's where the zealotry comes from. And the governments and the politicians and the civil service and the globalists, they know us better than anyone else. They know exactly what makes us tick. And that divide and conquer thing doesn't just start with like black, white, Catholic, Protestant. It goes to very deep, deep levels in people's psyche. And it's driven always by fear, because the majority of it only takes. I saw a very good film there the other day about a guy called Terry Hooley in Belfast, who was basically the father of punk rock in Belfast during the Troubles. And he pointed, and the film points out that before the Troubles began, the Catholics and the Protestants got on fine. But as soon as the first killings or shootings happened, the division happened, because the primal tribal fear set in. It set in really badly. And this is what is very deep in a certain type of human being that has not developed themselves personally on a conscious level. And that's most of us, because they've done that to us through the education system. They've done that to people through television. They've made them selfish, narcissistic, infantile. They do not want to face their own shadows. They're always trying to pass it on to someone else. And if you look at every single cult that has ever existed, they have one fundamental ethos: to find people who can face the shadow and pretend we have a method of them facing the shadow. And for society as a whole, among the secular cult members, they've given them, for certain types of a certain demographic, they've given them Black Lives Matter, but for the majority, they've given them COVID-19. That's the shadow addressing.